A large muscle located on the anterior chest, which is antagonistic to the latissimus dorsi, an extension of the arm, is the pectoralis major. This fan-shaped muscle has a broad origin, which extends from the medial half of the clavicle, sternum, and cartilage of the second to the sixth ribs, and the aponeurosis of the external oblique. Its fibers converge to insert on the greater tubercle of the humerus. When the arm has been extended backward, the pectoralis major pulls it forward and medially rotates it. The muscle which forms the rounded shape of the shoulder is the deltoid. Fibers of the anterior part originate on the lateral one-third of the clavicle. The central part originates on the acromion, and the posterior part arises on the spine of the scapula. The deltoid inserts by its tendon into the deltoid tuberosity of the humerus. The major action of the deltoid is abduction of the humerus, but parts of the muscle can also act synergistically with other muscles in flexion, extension, medial and lateral rotation of the arm. The most superficial muscle which lies on the anterior arm is the biceps brachii. As the name implies, it has two heads of origin. Both arise from the scapula and can be seen when the other muscles of the shoulder region are reflected. The long head originates above the glenoid cavity on the supraglenoid tubercle. The tendon of the short head arises from the coracoid process. The two heads of the biceps unite and insert by a common tendon into the radial tuberosity and through the bicipital aponeurosis, which has been removed in this specimen. The biceps brachii flexes the forearm at the elbow joint and also acts as a powerful supinator of the forearm. The major extensor of the forearm can be identified on the posterior surface of the arm. It is the triceps brachii, and like the biceps brachii, it has more than one head of origin. One of these, the long head, arises above the shoulder joint on the infraglenoid tubercle of the scapula. The other two heads, the lateral and medial heads, originate on the posterior humerus, superior and inferior to the radial groove. All three heads insert by a common tendon into the olecranon process of the ulna. Located on the posterior surface of the forearm are two muscles which arise on the humerus and insert on the carpal bones, and therefore cause movements of the hand at the wrist joint. One of these, the extensor carpi radialis longus, arises beneath the brachioradialis muscle on the lateral supracondylar ridge of the humerus. Its insertion is the dorsum of the base of the second metacarpal. Extension and abduction of the hand at the wrist are actions of this muscle. Another muscle, the extensor carpi ulnaris, is synergistic to the extensor carpi radialis longus in its action of extension at the wrist. It is, however, antagonistic to the action of abduction, and instead adducts the hand at the wrist. This muscle originates on the lateral epicondyle of the humerus and the posterior ulna. It inserts into the base of the fifth metacarpal. The large superficial muscle located between the two extensors of the hand is the extensor digitorum. It too originates on the lateral epicondyle of the humerus, as does the extensor carpi ulnaris. Distally, its tendons insert by the extensor expansion into the distal phalanges of digits 2, 3, 4, and 5. When this muscle contracts, the fingers are extended. On the anterior surface of the forearm are the muscles which produce flexion of the hand at the wrist and the fingers. The flexor carpi ulnaris is the most medial in position. Its origin is the medial epicondyle of the humerus and the posterior ulna. It inserts into the pisiform, hamate, and fifth metacarpal bones. In addition to flexion of the hand at the wrist, it is synergistic with the extensor carpi ulnaris in adduction. The most laterally located flexor of the hand is the flexor carpi radialis. It arises by a common tendon with the other flexor muscles on the medial epicondyle of the humerus and diagonally crosses the forearm to insert on the second and third metacarpals. It also works with the extensor carpi radialis longus to produce abduction of the hand at the wrist. The most superficial flexor of the fingers is the flexor digitorum superficialis. It has an extensive origin with fibers coming from the medial epicondyle of the humerus and the coronoid process of the ulna to join with additional fibers from the proximal radius. Near the wrist, the muscle divides into 4 tendons which go to the middle phalanx of the 4 fingers. As each tendon of the flexor digitorum superficialis approaches the middle phalanx, it splits and permits the tendon of the flexor digitorum profundus to pass through to go to the distal phalanx. The largest